The chandelier scattered diamonds of light across the ballroom floor. 300 guests in silk and secrets swirled beneath its glow. But Beatrice Valdieri wasn't watching the dancers. He was watching him. Matteo Argenzi stood alone near the marble pillar, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The most feared Mafia boss in Italy. The man whose name made powerful men stutter. Then she saw it. A red dot. Trembling against his forehead like a nervous heartbeat. Her champagne glass slipped. Shattered. And before she could think, before reason could stop her, Beatrice was walking toward the most dangerous man in the room. His dark eyes found her. Cold. Calculating. The Italian script tattoo across his knuckles caught the light as he set down his glass. She leaned close. Close enough to smell sandalwood and danger. "Dance is my husband," she whispered. "There's a red dot on your forehead." His expression never changed. But something shifted in those dark brown eyes. Something that felt like the beginning of everything. If you're enjoying this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more dark romance content. The gala was a masterpiece of deception. Venetian masks. Vintage champagne. The creme of Italian society pretending they didn't know exactly who funded these marble halls, who paid for the orchestra, who owned the very air they breathed. Beatrice adjusted her emerald gown and tried to remember why she'd agreed to attend. Networking, her gallery director had insisted. Connections. The art world runs on who you know. What Elena hadn't mentioned was that who you know apparently included half the criminal underworld of Milan. Beatrice moved through the crowd like smoke. Observing. Always observing. It was a gift. A curse perhaps. She noticed the woman whose smile didn't reach her eyes. The politician whose hands trembled when a certain name was mentioned. The bodyguards positioned at every exit, their suits tailored to hide weapons. And she noticed Matteo Argenzi. Everyone noticed Matteo Argenzi. He stood apart from the crowd not because he tried to, but because the crowd instinctively created distance. A pocket of empty space surrounded him like an invisible barrier. Perhaps 6'3". His charcoal suit was cut with precision that spoke of money older than nations. Dark hair styled neatly but not fussily. A jawline that could cut glass, softened only slightly by the shadow of stubble. But it was his stillness that caught her. In a room full of performance he was utterly, terrifyingly still. She'd heard the rumors. Everyone had. The Argenzi family had controlled northern Italy's underground for 3 generations. But Matteo had transformed the empire into something unprecedented. Legitimate businesses woven so tightly with illegitimate operations that authorities couldn't separate them without destroying half the economy. He was 38. Unmarried. Rumored to have survived 4 assassination attempts before his 30th birthday. The 5th apparently was happening right now. The red dot appeared first on the marble pillar beside him. A barely visible tremor of light. Beatrice's breath caught. She knew that light. Knew what it meant. Sniper scope. Laser sight. Someone in this room wanted Matteo Argenzi dead. The dot climbed. Searching. Finding. It settled on his forehead like a crimson kiss. Her champagne glass slipped from nerveless fingers. The crash was swallowed by the orchestra, by the laughter, by the ignorance of 300 people who had no idea they were about to witness an execution. Move, her mind screamed. Run. This isn't your problem. But her feet were already carrying her forward. The crowd parted for her without knowing why. Perhaps it was the determination in her stride. Perhaps it was the madness. She was going to approach Matteo Argenzi. The Matteo Argenzi. Women had tried before, she knew. Socialites and actresses and daughters of powerful families. They approached with flirtation, with calculation, with offers wrapped in silk. None of them lasted. None of them mattered. And here she was, a mid-level gallery curator with no connections and no protection, walking straight into his space. His eyes found her when she was 10 feet away. Dark brown. Almost black in the chandelier light. They tracked her movement with the focus of a predator assessing prey. The tattoo on his knuckles seemed to darken as his hand tightened almost imperceptibly around his whiskey glass. La famiglia prima di tutto. Family before everything. She didn't stop. Couldn't stop. 5 feet. 3. The red dot wavered slightly. The sniper was adjusting, perhaps confused by her approach. She stepped into his space. Into the invisible barrier that kept the world at bay. This close she could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. could smell sandalwood and something darker, something that reminded her of old books and older secrets. His expression remained perfectly neutral, but she felt the shift in his attention like a physical weight. "Signorina." His voice was low, controlled. "I don't believe we've been introduced." She leaned closer. Close enough that anyone watching would assume intimacy. Close enough to see the exact moment her words registered. "Dance is my husband. There's a red dot on your forehead. One heartbeat." His expression never flickered. His body showed no sign of fear or surprise. But something changed in his eyes. Something cold and calculating gave way to something sharper. More dangerous. Interest. "You're either very brave," he murmured, his lips barely moving, "or very foolish." "I'm neither." Her voice was steadier than her heartbeat. "I'm simply the only person in this room who noticed. And you chose to warn me." His hand moved, slowly, deliberately, to her waist, drawing her toward the dance floor. Rather than watch the show. The red dot followed them for 3 steps. Then it vanished. They moved onto the dance floor just as a waltz began. His hand settled at the small of her back, warm through the silk of her gown, firm with controlled strength. He guided her with the ease of a man who had danced in 100 ballrooms, seduced 100 women, buried 100 enemies. But his eyes never left hers. "The sniper," she whispered. "Upper balcony. East side." "I know." "You," she stumbled slightly. He caught her without breaking rhythm. "You knew." "I knew someone would try tonight." His thumb traced an absent pattern against her spine. "I didn't know who would warn me." The implication settled over her like ice water. He'd been waiting. Testing. Watching to see who in this room would choose sides. And she'd just chosen. "Who are you?" His voice was soft. Curious in a way that felt more dangerous than anger. "Beatrice Valdieri. I curate the Aldani Gallery." "Art." The word held a note of something. Amusement, perhaps. Or disbelief. "You work in art." "I notice things." She met his gaze steadily. "Colors. Compositions. Patterns that don't belong. Like laser sights at charity galas." "Like laser sights at charity galas." He was quiet for a long moment. The music swelled around them, hiding their conversation from the nearby dancers. "You've just made yourself a target, Beatrice Valdieri." He spoke her name like he was tasting it. Memorizing it. "I hope you understand that." "I understood it when I walked toward you." The waltz ended too soon. He released her slowly, reluctantly, she thought, though his expression revealed nothing. "My men will handle the situation." His eyes flicked briefly toward the balcony. "You should leave. Quietly. Before anyone realizes what just happened." "And you?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I have a schedule to keep." He turned away, already gesturing subtly to someone across the room. A tall man with cold eyes moved toward the east staircase. Beatrice stood alone on the dance floor, her heart still pounding, her skin still burning where his hand had rested. She should leave. He was right. This wasn't her world, her problem, her fight. But as she turned toward the exit, she felt his gaze on her back. Felt it like a brand. Like a promise. 3 days passed. 3 days of jumping at shadows, of checking the locks on her apartment twice before bed, of scanning every face on the street for signs of danger. Nothing happened. No men in dark suits appeared at her gallery. No threatening phone calls. No indication that anyone knew what she'd done, what she'd seen. Perhaps Matteo Argenzi had already forgotten her. She told herself that was what she wanted. She almost believed it. The knock came on Thursday afternoon. Beatrice was alone in the gallery, cataloging a new shipment of Renaissance reproductions. The Aldani wasn't prestigious, not like the galleries that attracted Argenzi-level clients, but it was hers to manage, and she took pride in that. The knock was soft, almost polite. She opened the door and found him standing there. Not Matteo. A man in his 50s, impeccably dressed, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much to show anything. "Miss Valdieri." His Italian was formal, old-fashioned. "Mr. Argenzi requests the pleasure of your company for dinner this evening." Requests. As if she had a choice. "I don't," she steadied her voice. "I don't believe I know Mr. Argenzi well enough for dinner invitations." The man's expression didn't change. Mr. Argenzi is aware of your reservations. He wishes to discuss them with you. Personally. And if I decline? A slight pause. The barest flicker of something in those cold eyes. Mr. Argenzi would prefer that you didn't. The car arrived at 7. But the windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside until the door opened. She'd spent 3 hours convincing herself not to go. Then 3 minutes choosing a dress. The deep burgundy silk had belonged to her mother. It was old-fashioned, perhaps, but it fit her perfectly, and something about its weight made her feel armored. The driver, a different man younger with a scar across his jaw, held the door without speaking. The interior was leather and shadow. He climbed in. They drove for 40 minutes. Out of Milan into the hills where old money built older estates. The Argenzi compound was not what she expected. No fortress. No visible guards. Just a sprawling villa in the Lombardy style, surrounded by olive groves and silence. But Beatrice noticed the cameras hidden in the cypress trees. The subtle reinforcement of the walls. The way the grounds were laid out with clear sight lines, no cover for approaching threats. A beautiful prison. Or a perfect trap. Matteo was waiting in the dining room. He'd abandoned the formality of the gala. Tonight he wore a black shirt, open at the collar just enough to reveal the edge of ink. A dark tattoo that curved along his collarbone, Latin script she couldn't quite read. Memento mori, perhaps. Remember that you will die. Appropriate for a man who dealt so intimately with death. Beatrice. He rose when she entered. Thank you for coming. Your invitation was compelling. A slight curve of his lips. Silvio tends toward intensity. I apologize if he alarmed you. You sent a stranger to my workplace to summon me to dinner. Alarm was appropriate. He pulled out her chair himself. The gesture was old-fashioned. Pertly. It reminded her that monsters could have beautiful manners. Wine. He lifted a bottle that probably cost more than her monthly salary. Information first. She met his eyes. Why am I here? He set down the bottle. Sat across from her. Those dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her skin feel too tight. You saved my life, he said simply. I don't know why. Neither do I. That, he murmured, is what I find so interesting. Dinner was served by staff who moved like ghosts, present and then gone, leaving no trace of their passage. The food was exquisite. He barely tasted it. I've had you investigated, Matteo said, casual as commenting on the weather. Beatrice Valdieri. 28. Born in Verona, raised in Florence. Your mother died when you were 12. Your father remarried badly. You left home at 18, worked your way through university studying art history. He sipped his wine. His eyes never left her face. No criminal connections. No political affiliations. No reason whatsoever to involve yourself in the affairs of my family. And yet. He set down his glass. Here you are. I told you. She kept her voice steady. I noticed things. I noticed the laser sight. I made a choice. Most people noticing such a thing would have looked away. Pretended not to see. Let events unfold. Most people didn't grow up watching their mother die slowly because no one intervened when they should have. The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence stretched between them. Matteo's expression shifted. Subtly, almost imperceptibly. Something in those dark eyes softened for just a moment before closing off again. I see, he said quietly. I'm not looking for involvement in your world. Beatrice set down her fork. I made an impulsive decision. I'm glad it worked out. But I have no desire to become entangled in, whatever this is. This. Organized crime. Family vendettas. The constant threat of assassination. You speak very directly. He didn't sound offended. If anything, he sounded intrigued. Life is short. I've found that honesty saves time. And yet you work in art. A world built entirely on interpretation and concealed meaning. She almost smiled. Perhaps that's why I prefer plain speaking in my personal life. The sniper has been dealt with. Matteo's tone shifted, colder, harder. The Mafia boss replacing the dinner host. He was hired by the Marchetti family. Old rivals. They've been testing my boundaries for months. Will they try again? They always try again. He shrugged, elegant and unconcerned. That's the nature of the business. The business of killing people? The business of power. His eyes met hers. I don't expect you to understand. I don't expect to want to. After dinner he walked her through the villa. It was a small courtesy, but it felt deliberate, as if he wanted her to see his world, to understand the beauty that existed alongside the darkness. The art collection made her breath catch. A Caravaggio, genuine she was certain, though no public record existed of its location. A Botticelli sketch, delicate as a whisper. Modern pieces from artists she'd studied but never dreamed of seeing in person. You collect, she murmured, stopping before a Titian. I preserve. He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. These pieces would have been destroyed or sold to the highest bidder without protection. I provide sanctuary. For art. For beauty worth saving. She felt his gaze on the side of her face. Knew he was no longer talking about paintings. The car will take you home. His voice was quieter now. You won't be bothered again. Whatever debt existed between us, consider it settled. She should have felt relieved. Instead she felt strangely disappointed. That's it then. That's it. He stepped back, creating distance. Unless. His jaw tightened. The tattoo at his collarbone seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. Unless you want something more. That's not a question. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. That's a trap. Everything in my world is a trap. He turned away, but not before she saw something flicker in his eyes. I'm simply honest about it. How refreshing. He walked her to the door. The car was waiting, its engine running, a silent promise of escape. She paused on the threshold. The investigation you conducted, she said. Did it satisfy your curiosity? About your motivations? He leaned against the doorframe, all casual elegance and coiled danger. Yes. And what did you conclude? That you're exactly who you appear to be. His voice dropped. Which makes you either the most dangerous woman I've ever met, or the most honest. She climbed into the car. The door closed. The villa's lights faded in the rearview mirror, swallowed by the darkness of the Lombardy hills. Beatrice pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her heartbeat slowly return to normal. It's over, she told herself. He said it himself. The debt is settled. She was free. Safe. Untouched by his world. So why did she feel like something had been torn away? 2 weeks passed. Life returned to normal. The gallery, the daily commute, the quiet evenings in her small apartment overlooking the canal. Normal. She threw herself into work, organizing a new exhibition, cataloging donations, avoiding any thought of dark eyes and dangerous smiles. Then the flowers arrived. They were waiting on her desk when she arrived Monday morning. White roses. 12. No card. Elena raised an eyebrow. Secret admirer? Beatrice's throat tightened. Something like that. He threw them away. The next day there were 24. By Friday she'd stopped counting. The flowers kept coming. Always white roses, always without explanation. Her co-workers whispered. Elena made increasingly pointed comments about mystery men and romance. Beatrice knew better. This wasn't romance. This was a message. I'm watching. I haven't forgotten. She found herself looking over her shoulder on the walk home. Checking shadows. Startling at sounds. The sensation of being watched became constant. A prickling at the back of her neck that never quite faded. She told herself she was being paranoid. Then she noticed the car. Parked across the street from her apartment building every evening when she returned home. Every evening. Without fail. On the third night she marched up to the car and knocked on the tinted window. It rolled down. The driver was young, early 20s, with the blank face of someone trained not to show emotion. Miss Valdieri. He didn't seem surprised to see her. Tell your employer that if he wants to speak to me, he can do it himself instead of sending surveillance. Pause. Mr. Argenzi isn't. The flowers aren't. The young man stopped. Started again. I'm here for your protection, miss. Not surveillance. Protection from what? He didn't answer. The answer came 3 days later. Beatrice was walking home from the gallery, her mind occupied with exhibition schedules and budget concerns. She didn't notice the man following her until he was 3 steps behind. Didn't notice the second man until he appeared from the alley ahead. Her heart stopped. They moved toward her, not quickly but with purpose. Professional. Deliberate. She turned to run. A third man blocked her path. Beatrice Valdieri? The voice came from behind her. She spun to face the first man, middle-aged, with a face like cracked leather and eyes that held nothing but cold calculation. The Marchetti family sends their regards. She opened her mouth to scream. A hand clamped over her face. Something sharp pricked her neck. The world dissolved into darkness. She woke to pain. Her wrists burned, rope she realized dimly. Her ankles too. She was bound to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Industrial. The scent of rust and decay. She was not alone. The man with the leather face sat across from her, a patient smile on his lips. Welcome back, Miss Valdieri. I apologize for the crude accommodations. He tested her bonds. Thought. No give. What do you want? Direct. I appreciate that. He leaned forward. We want Matteo Argenzi. And thanks to your performance at the charity gala, we believe you might be able to help us get him. I barely know him. Her voice cracked. Genuine fear, she let it show, let them think she was breaking. I met him once. One dinner. That's all. And yet he posts men outside your apartment. Sends flowers to your workplace. Runs background checks on everyone you've ever spoken to. The man smiled, showing teeth. You matter to Matteo Argenzi. That makes you valuable. They left her alone for hours. Long enough for panic to cycle into numbness. For hope to fade into cold acceptance. She thought about her mother's funeral. The white roses on the casket. The way life could change in a single moment, without warning, without mercy. She thought about Matteo's hands at her waist, guiding her across the dance floor. His voice in her ear. The intensity of his gaze. You've made yourself a target. He'd warned her. She hadn't listened. The warehouse door crashed open. Beatrice's head snapped up, her heart slamming against her ribs. Figures poured through the entrance, dark suits, weapons drawn. Controlled violence in human form. And at their center, moving with the calm of a man who owned death itself. His eyes found hers across the warehouse. Something passed across his face, something raw and uncontrolled, gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Then the shooting started. It was over in minutes. The Marchetti men were trained, but Matteo's people were better. Faster. More brutal. When the silence fell, 5 bodies littered the warehouse floor. Matteo walked toward her, stepping over the carnage without looking down. Beatrice. He knelt before her chair, a knife appearing in his hand. Are you hurt? Her voice wouldn't work. How did you? I told you. He cut through the ropes at her wrists, his touch surprisingly gentle. I was watching. She should have been furious. Should have screamed at him about surveillance and privacy and the violence of his world spilling into her life. Instead, when the ropes fell away, she crumpled forward. And he caught her. His arms closed around her, solid, warm, the scent of gunpowder and sandalwood filling her lungs. For one long moment she let herself fall apart. Then she pulled back, wiping her eyes, forcing steel into her spine. This can't happen again. Her voice shook. I can't, I won't be a target. A pawn in your games. No. His jaw tightened. You won't. He helped her to her feet. His hand lingered at her elbow, steadying her. You're coming with me. It wasn't a request. She knew that. But looking around the warehouse, at the bodies, at the blood, at the evidence of how close she'd come to death, she didn't have the strength to argue. Not tonight. Tonight she let Matteo Argenzi fold her into the back of another black car. Let him take her away from the violence. Let herself wonder just for a moment if being saved by the devil was better than being destroyed by the demons. The villa was different at night. No dinner guests. No careful formality. Just shadows and silence and the distant sound of wind in the olive groves. Matteo led her through halls she hadn't seen before, away from the public spaces into what felt like the heart of the house. You can stay here. He opened a door. It's the safest room in the compound. The bedroom was elegant. Feminine, almost, with cream silk curtains and a bed that looked like a cloud. This was, he paused, my mother's room. No one has used it since she passed. Matteo. You need rest. His voice was clipped. Professional. We'll talk in the morning. He turned to leave. Wait. He stopped at the door. Didn't turn around. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. For coming for me. A long pause. I will always come for you. Then he was gone. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time she closed her eyes she saw the warehouse. The ropes. The cold certainty in her captor's eyes. She rose sometime past midnight, wrapping herself in a robe she found in the closet. Silk, expensive, smelling faintly of lavender and thyme. The villa was quiet as she wandered its halls. She found Matteo in the library. He sat in a leather armchair, a glass of whiskey untouched on the table beside him. He'd removed his jacket. The dark tattoo along his forearm was visible now. A Roman crest, intricate and ancient, the symbol of his family's power. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep. She shook her head. He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat. The Marchetti family has been dealt with. His voice was flat. Emotionless. The men who took you are dead. The family itself. A ghost of a smile. Let's say they've been reminded of their place. You killed them. I protected what's mine. The words hung in the air between them. What's mine? I'm not yours. She said it quietly. Without anger. No. His eyes met hers. But you're not no one either. Not anymore. Because I saved your life? Because you chose to. He leaned forward. In a world where everyone calculates advantage, you acted on instinct. On compassion. Do you know how rare that is? She didn't answer. I've spent 20 years building walls, he continued. Learning to trust no one. Assuming every kindness hides an agenda. His voice dropped. Then you walked across that ballroom and whispered in my ear, and I've been trying to understand why ever since. There's nothing to understand. She folded her arms. I saw someone in danger. I acted. That's all. That's not all. Matteo. You felt something. He rose from his chair. Moved toward her. In that moment. When our eyes met. When I took your hand. She stood her ground even as he entered her space. You felt the same thing I did. He was close now. So close she could see the individual threads of silver in his dark hair. The fine lines around his eyes that spoke of burden and sleepless nights. The tattoo at his neck seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. I don't know what I felt, she whispered. Yes, you do. His hand rose. Hovered near her cheek without touching. I've killed men for less than what you've done to me, he murmured. But you I want to keep alive. Want to protect. Want to. He stopped himself. His hand dropped. This is insane. She stepped back. I don't belong in your world. I'm an art curator. I catalog paintings and organize exhibitions. I can't. I'm not asking you to join my world. Then what are you asking? He was silent for a long moment. Stay. For now. Until I'm certain the threat has passed. His voice was raw. Let me protect you. And when it's safe, you can walk away. No obligations. No debts. And what do you get out of this arrangement? His eyes met hers. Time. He should say no. Should demand to be returned to her apartment, her life, her carefully constructed normalcy. But standing in the firelight, watching shadows play across Matteo Argenzi's face, she felt something crack inside her. Something that had been frozen for a very long time. 1 week, she said. His eyes flickered with surprise. 1 week. And then we reassess. He nodded. Once. 1 week. He stepped back, giving her space to breathe. There's a staff. Anything you need they'll provide. The gallery, I'll have someone inform them you're taking personal leave. You have someone for that? I have someone for everything. She almost laughed. It felt inappropriate given everything, but it bubbled up anyway. A small, broken sound that surprised them both. Matteo watched her with an expression she couldn't read. Good night, Beatrice. Good night. She returned to the silken lavender bedroom. This time when she closed her eyes she didn't see the warehouse. She saw dark eyes across a ballroom. A hand extended in invitation. The beginning of something she couldn't name. Sleep came eventually. And with it, dreams of fire and shadow and a man who killed without hesitation but looked at her like she was something precious. Something worth protecting. Day 1 was awkward. Beatrice wandered the villa like a ghost, unsure of her place, uncertain of the rules. The staff treated her with deference. brought her meals, answered her questions, vanished whenever she needed privacy. Matteo was notably absent. She found him at dinner. He sat at the head of the enormous table, paperwork spread before him, a phone pressed to his ear. The conversation was in rapid Italian, business from what she could gather, though the exact nature remained obscured. He hung up when he saw her. "You look rested." "I look confused." She sat across from him. "What am I supposed to do here?" "Whatever you want." He set aside the paperwork. "The grounds are safe for walking. The library is at your disposal. If you need art materials." "I don't paint." "No." His eyebrow rose. "I assumed, given your profession." "I curate. I observe. I don't create." She reached for the wine that had appeared at her elbow. "That particular talent escaped me. Perhaps you simply haven't found the right inspiration." She ignored the implication. "Tell me about the Marchetti family." A flicker of something, annoyance, approval, crossed his face. "They're a declining power. 3 generations ago they controlled southern Italy. Now they're desperate, making bold moves to regain lost territory. And you're the obstacle. I'm the wall they keep throwing themselves against." He sipped his wine. "The gala was supposed to be neutral ground. They violated that neutrality. By trying to kill you. By trying to kill me. And now they've lost their best assassin. Several key operatives. And their reputation for competence." His smile was cold. "They'll regroup. Plan something new. But they're weakened. Until they recover." "Yes." She set down her glass. "This is your life. Constantly looking over your shoulder. Waiting for the next attack. This is my inheritance." His voice hardened. "I didn't choose it any more than you chose the color of your eyes. You could walk away. Could I?" He leaned forward. "Walk away from the thousands of people who depend on the businesses I control? The communities I protect from rival families who are far less principled. You call yourself principled? I have rules." His gaze held hers. "Lines I don't cross. People I don't hurt. Can you say the same for the legitimate powers you admire? The governments? The corporations?" She didn't have an answer for that. The days took on a rhythm. Mornings she spent in the library, reading, exploring the art collection, trying not to think too hard about why she felt so comfortable in a criminal's home. Afternoons she walked the grounds, accompanied always by a discreet guard who maintained enough distance to provide privacy while remaining close enough for protection. Evenings she dined with Matteo. He was not what she expected. The monster of her imagination, cold, calculating, emotionless, existed certainly. She saw glimpses of him during phone calls, in the hardening of his jaw when bad news arrived. But there was another Matteo. One who asked about her childhood, her studies, her dreams. One who listened more than he spoke. One who looked at her across the candlelit table as if she were a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Day 4 she found him in the garden at dawn. He was practicing something. Martial arts perhaps, or some disciplined form of combat training. His shirt was discarded on a nearby bench, revealing the full extent of his tattoos. The Roman crest on his forearm. The Latin script across his collarbone. And others she hadn't seen before. A serpent coiled along his ribs, a date inked over his heart. He moved with brutal grace. She watched from the doorway, unseen, until he completed his routine. "You're up early." He'd sensed her presence without turning around. She wasn't surprised. "I couldn't sleep." "Dreams." Something like that. He reached for a towel, wiped his face. The muscles of his back shifted as he moved. She looked away. "There's something I haven't told you." He pulled on his shirt. "About why you were targeted." Her stomach tightened. "I thought they took me to get to you." "They did. But there's more." He faced her, buttoning his shirt with methodical precision. "The Marchetti family has allies. People who've been feeding them information about my operations. About my personal interests." "Personal interests?" His eyes met hers. "You, Beatrice. Someone told them about you." The implication sank in slowly. "Someone in your organization is a traitor." "Yes." "And they used me to prove it?" "No." His voice sharpened. "They used you because they knew I would come for you. Would expose myself. Would make mistakes." "And did you make mistakes?" Pause. I'm here having this conversation instead of hunting them down. Some would say that's a mistake. Then why are you here? He stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell the sweat and morning air on his skin. Because you asked me to wait 3 nights ago. And because... He stopped. Started again. Because I find myself wanting to be wherever you are. Her heart hammered. Matteo. I know. He stepped back. I know it's impossible. You've made your position clear. But you asked for honesty, Beatrice. This is honest. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to do with the confession that hung between them like smoke. So she did what she always did when confronted with impossible emotions. She changed the subject. What happens when you find the traitor? His expression closed off. What always happens? Day 6. A visitor arrived at the villa. Beatrice was in the library when she heard voices in the entrance hall, Matteo's low rumble and something higher. Feminine. She moved toward the door without thinking. And stopped. The woman was beautiful. Tall and blonde, dressed in designer fashion that probably cost more than Beatrice's annual salary. She stood too close to Matteo, her hand on his arm, her laughter ringing through the marble hall. Matteo, you've been absolutely terrible about returning calls. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten me. His response was too quiet to hear. But Beatrice heard the woman's reply perfectly. Dinner tonight then. Just like old times. Unless you have other obligations. Beatrice stepped back into the library. Her chest felt tight. Her hands were shaking slightly. This is ridiculous, she told herself. You have no claim on him. No right to this feeling. But the feeling didn't care about logic. It burned anyway. She didn't appear for dinner. Claimed a headache. Had a tray sent to her room. Sat by the window watching the sunset paint the olive groves gold and refused to think about Matteo dining with the beautiful blonde. Just like old times. What did that mean? Why did she care? The knock came at midnight. Beatrice. Matteo's voice through the door. I know you're not sleeping. She considered pretending. Decided against it. Come in. He entered quietly, still dressed in the dark suit he'd worn for his visitor. You missed dinner. I wasn't hungry. He studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. You're jealous. I am not. Julia is my cousin. His eyes sparkled with something that might have been amusement. My extremely married, extremely pregnant cousin. The wave of relief that washed over her was mortifying. That's, she straightened her spine. That's not relevant. I wasn't. You were. He moved closer. And I find it encouraging. Encouraging. It suggests that my feelings aren't entirely one-sided. She should deny it. Should maintain the boundaries she'd established. But his eyes were dark in the lamplight and his voice was low and rough, and the truth was pressing against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for flight. I don't know what I feel, she whispered. Then let me help you figure it out. He crossed the remaining distance between them. Stood close enough that she could feel his warmth. See the pulse beating in his throat. One touch. His voice was barely audible. That's all I'm asking. Let me touch you once, and if you feel nothing, I'll never bring it up again. He should say no. Should protect herself from this impossible entanglement. But she'd been protecting herself for so long. And she was so very tired of being alone. She nodded. Once. Barely perceptible. But he saw it. His hand rose. Cupped her cheek with devastating gentleness. His thumb traced the curve of her cheekbone, the corner of her mouth, the sensitive skin below her ear. She felt the roughness of his palm. The calluses that spoke of violence and work and survival. And beneath all of it, beneath the danger and the darkness, she felt something else. Tenderness. Beatrice. Her name was a prayer on his lips. She closed her eyes. Let herself feel. The warmth of his hand. The sound of his breathing. The electricity that arced between them like lightning. And she knew, with terrible, wonderful certainty, that nothing would ever be the same. Day 7 dawned cold and gray. Beatrice woke to find a note slipped under her door. Business requires my attention. I'll return tonight. Stay safe. She spent the morning trying to read. Trying to walk. Trying to think about anything except the feeling of his hand on her cheek. Failing spectacularly. Silvio found her in the garden at noon. The silver-haired man who had summoned her that first night now approached with obvious reluctance. Miss Valdieri. I have information that I believe you should hear. Information. He hesitated. About your mother. The world went still. My mother died when I was 12. Illness. Illness. Silvio's voice was flat. Is that what you were told? That's what happened. Miss Valdieri. He took a breath. Your mother's death was not natural. It was ordered. By Matteo Argenzi. The name hung in the air. Matteo's father, she whispered. Yes. The next hours passed in a fog. Silvio explained, gently, clinically, the circumstances of her mother's death. Isabella Valdieri had been a witness. Wrong place, wrong time. Had seen something she shouldn't have seen involving Argenzi operations. And Matteo Argenzi, patriarch of the family, had solved the problem the way he solved all problems. Permanently. Mr. Matteo doesn't know. Silvio's voice was heavy. He was 18 when it happened. Away at university. The orders came from his father who died 3 years later. You're telling me, Beatrice's voice shook, that the father of the man I've been, she couldn't finish the sentence. I'm telling you the truth. Because you deserve to know what world you've entered. She waited for Matteo in the library. Every moment of the past week replayed in her mind. The touches, the confessions, the growing warmth between them. All built on a foundation of blood. Her mother's blood. He arrived at dusk. Found her sitting in the darkness, the fire unlit, her face pale and still. Beatrice. Concern flooded his voice. What happened? Are you? Your father killed my mother. The words fell like stones. Matteo went absolutely still. Silvio told me. Her voice was ice. Isabella Valdieri. 12 years ago. Witnessed something involving your family's operations. Your father had her murdered. Beatrice. Did you know? She stood. Faced him. When you investigated my background. When you brought me here. Did you know? No. The word was raw. I swear to you. Your father killed my mother and you want me to believe. I didn't know. The force of his voice stopped her. He stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, his hands clenched at his sides. I didn't know, he repeated, quieter. But I believe you. And I believe Silvio. My father was. He closed his eyes. My father was a monster, Beatrice. I spent my entire childhood surviving his cruelty. I've spent my entire adulthood trying to rebuild what he destroyed. That doesn't bring her back. No. His voice cracked. It doesn't. She turned away. Wrapped her arms around herself as if she could hold the pieces together. I need to leave. Beatrice. I can't be here. Tears burned her eyes. I can't look at you and not see. A sob escaped her. I need to leave. He didn't try to stop her. Didn't reach for her, didn't argue, didn't use any of the weapons at his disposal. He simply said, the car will be ready in an hour. And walked away. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of gray mornings and empty evenings. Of jumping at shadows. Of reaching for a phone to call someone she had no right to call. The gallery welcomed her back without questions. Elena made pointed comments about mysterious leaves of absence and return changed, but Beatrice deflected them all. She threw herself into work. It wasn't enough. The flowers stopped coming. No more roses on her desk. No more black cars parked across the street. Matteo had kept his word. He'd let her go. Why did that feel like losing something precious? He dreamed of him. Dark eyes across a ballroom. Hands at her waist. The warmth of his palm against her cheek. Let me touch you once. She woke with his name on her lips and tears on her pillow. Week 2, she visited her mother's grave. Stood in the cold wind and whispered questions that had no answers. Would you forgive him? Would you want me to carry this anger forever? Would you understand if I told you that I miss him? The stone gave no response. But somewhere in the silence she heard her mother's voice. Love is not a punishment, Carmia. It's a gift. Week 3, she began to research. The Argenzi family. Their history. The transition from Vittorio's brutal reign to Matteo's more measured approach. What she found surprised her. Under Matteo's leadership, violence had decreased dramatically. Legitimate businesses had expanded. Communities that had suffered under his father now flourished. He wasn't his father's son. He was his father's repudiation. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. Beatrice was cataloging a new acquisition. A minor work unremarkable, when she noticed something in the provenance documents. A name that shouldn't be there. Marketing. She made calls. Dug deeper. Followed trails that wound through shell companies and fake identities. And finally she understood. The traitor in Matteo's organization. The one who had fed information to the Marchetti family. The one who had orchestrated her kidnapping. She knew who it was. And she knew why. Her hands shook as she reached for her phone. She hadn't spoken to him in 3 weeks. But some things were more important than pride. More important than pain. She dialed. Beatrice. His voice was hoarse. Raw. As if he hadn't spoken in days. I know who the traitor is. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. I know who's been working with the Marchetti family. A long pause. Tell me. She met him at a cafe in Milan. Neutral ground. Public space. Everything proper and formal and completely inadequate for the storm of emotions between them. He looked diminished somehow. Paler. Thinner. As if her absence had carved pieces out of him. She looked away before he could see the same truth in her eyes. Silvio. The name landed like a blow. Matteo's expression froze. That's not possible. I have documentation. She slid a folder across the table. Shell companies connecting his personal accounts to Marchetti interests. Communication logs. Financial transfers. He didn't touch the folder. Silvio has been with my family for 40 years. And he hates you. She kept her voice even. He was loyal to your father. Believed in your father's methods. When you took over, started changing things. He saw me as a betrayal. Yes. Why are you telling me this? The question cut deeper than it should have. Because whatever happened between your father and my mother, it wasn't your sin. She met his eyes. And because the man who took me, who would have killed me, deserves to answer for that. Even though it means helping me? She looked away. Even though it means helping you. The operation happened 2 nights later. Beatrice wasn't there. Matteo wouldn't allow it, but she received updates through the night. Silvio, confronted with evidence, had tried to run. Had been stopped. And had finally confessed everything. The connection to her mother's death wasn't a coincidence. Silvio had been the one to carry out Vittorio's orders 12 years ago. Had been the one to make Isabella Valdieri's murder look like illness. And when Beatrice appeared at the gala, when Matteo showed interest, Silvio had recognized her. Had panicked. Had accelerated his plans to bring down the Argenzi heir. All roads led back to that single night. That single whispered warning. The text came at 3 a.m. It's done. He'll face justice. She stared at the phone for a long time. Then typed 4 words. Can we talk? Please. He came to her apartment at dawn. Standing in her doorway, looking like a man who had walked through fire and wasn't sure if he'd survived. She let him in without speaking. They stood in her small living room, the morning light painting everything gold and gray. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. My father destroyed your family. His voice was barely audible. The man I trusted most facilitated it. Everything I touch turns to blood. Not everything. How can you? He stopped. His jaw tightened. I've spent 3 weeks trying to understand how you could possibly. Because I know who you are. She stepped closer. Not your father. Not your family history. You. I'm a criminal, Beatrice. You're a man who's trying to be better than what he inherited. That doesn't erase. Nothing erases it. Her voice cracked. My mother is still dead. That grief will always be part of me. But carrying hatred alongside it doesn't honor her memory. It just poisons everything else. He closed his eyes. I don't deserve. Maybe not. She reached for his hand. Felt his fingers close around hers, tentatively as if she might shatter. But I'm not offering forgiveness because you deserve it. I'm offering it because I'm tired of letting the past destroy the future. He opened his eyes. And for the first time since she'd known him, she saw tears. Beatrice. I don't know what this is. She held his gaze. I don't know if it can work. Your world, my world, they don't fit together. But I know that the past 3 weeks without you have been the emptiest of my life. His free hand rose to her face. Cupped her cheek the way he had that night in the villa. Tell me what you need, he whispered. Anything. Everything. I'll make it happen. She took a breath. This was the moment. The choice that would define everything that came after. She could walk away. Protect herself. Return to the quiet, safe life she'd built before a red dot and a whispered warning changed everything. Or she could step forward. Into the fire. Into his arms. Into a future as dangerous and beautiful as the man himself. She looked into his eyes, dark, desperate, waiting. And made her choice. I need you to be patient with me. The words hung between them, fragile as spun glass. Matteo's hand trembled against her cheek. His eyes searched hers, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that she might disappear. I've waited 38 years to feel something like this, he said quietly. I can wait as long as you need. She stepped closer. Close enough to feel his heartbeat through the thin fabric of his shirt. Close enough to see the tattoo at his collarbone shifting with each breath. This doesn't mean I've forgotten what your family did to mine. I know. And it doesn't mean I'm ready to become part of your world. I know that too. She pressed her palm flat against his chest. But it means I'm willing to try. He kissed her forehead. Just that. Nothing more. A benediction rather than a claim. Then we try, he murmured against her skin. Together. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Matteo courted her the old-fashioned way. Dinners in quiet restaurants, walks through Milan's ancient streets, hours spent in her small apartment talking about everything and nothing. He never pushed. Never demanded. Never let her forget even for a moment that she could walk away. But she didn't walk away. Instead she found herself leaning in. Watching for his car outside her building. Checking her phone for his messages. Counting the hours until she would see him again. Elena noticed immediately. You're glowing. Her gallery director studied her with suspicious eyes. Either you've discovered a miracle skincare routine, or there's a man. There might be a man. The mystery flower sender? Beatrice smiled. Something like that. A month into their tentative relationship, Matteo invited her to a gala. Different from the first one. Smaller. More exclusive. It's a charity event, he explained. Children's hospital. Legitimate donors, legitimate cause. And you want me there because? His eyes met hers across the dinner table. Because I want the world to see you beside me. The dress was delivered the morning of the event. Deep emerald green, the same shade she'd worn the night they met. But this one was new, custom designed, she realized, studying the perfect fit. A note accompanied it. You saved my life in green. It seemed fitting. He arrived at 7. Black suit. Dark shirt. The Roman crest tattoo visible at his wrist as he extended his hand. His eyes traveled over her slowly, reverently, as if memorizing every detail. You look. He stopped. Shook his head. There aren't words. Flatterer. Truth-teller. He offered his arm. Shall we? The gala was beautiful. Crystal chandeliers. String quartet. The cream of Milanese society in silk and diamonds. But Beatrice barely noticed. She was too aware of Matteo beside her. His hand at the small of her back. His voice introducing her to politicians and businessmen. The way he positioned himself between her and any potential threat, even here, even among supposed allies. Dance with me. They were standing near the edge of the ballroom when he made the request. Not a demand, never a demand with him anymore. Just a question wrapped in velvet. People will talk. People always talk. His hand extended toward her. Dance with me anyway. She took his hand. The music shifted, something slow, something intimate. He pulled her close, closer than propriety allowed, and she let him. I keep thinking about that first night, he murmured. How you walked toward me when everyone else would have run. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking perfectly. His lips brushed her ear. You saw danger and decided it deserved a warning. That's who you are, Beatrice. Someone who runs toward fires instead of away from them. That sounds like a flaw. That sounds like the woman I'm falling in love with. She missed a step. He caught her easily, his arm tightening around her waist. Too soon. You, she stared at him. You can't just say things like that. Why not? Because we've only been. This has only been. I've known since the warehouse. His voice dropped lower. Since I saw you tied to that chair and felt my heart stop. I've known since before that, if I'm honest. Since you whispered in my ear and trusted me to keep you safe. The music swelled around them. Other couples moved past, oblivious to the seismic shift happening at the center of the dance floor. Matteo. You don't have to say it back. He pulled her closer still. You don't have to feel it yet. But I'm done pretending I don't, and I'm done hiding it. She rested her head against his shoulder. Let the music carry them. Let herself feel for just a moment what it might be like to let go completely. I'm getting there, she whispered. I know. His hand traced gentle patterns on her back. I'll wait. The photograph appeared 2 days later. Beatrice and Matteo, locked in their private embrace on the dance floor, splashed across the society pages. Argenzi heir claims new woman. Mystery beauty captures Mafia boss. Who is Beatrice Valdieri? Elena slapped the newspaper onto her desk. Care to explain? Beatrice looked at the image, at herself head on Matteo's shoulder, his arms wrapped around her like she was something precious. I'm seeing someone. You're seeing Matteo Argenzi. Elena's voice rose. The most dangerous man in Italy. The head of the largest criminal organization in the north. That's not seeing someone, Beatrice. That's walking into a volcano. I know who he is. Do you know what happens to the women who get close to men like him? Elena grabbed her hands. They disappear. They become collateral damage. He's not like that. Every woman thinks that. Until she's wrong. Beatrice pulled away. I appreciate your concern. But this is my choice. Is it? Elena's eyes were sharp. Or is it his choice and you've just convinced yourself otherwise? The question lingered long after Elena walked away. That night, Beatrice didn't answer Matteo's call. Didn't respond to his texts. Sat alone in her apartment, watching the rain streak down the windows, wondering if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. He appeared at her door 2 hours later. You're avoiding me. He stood in the hallway, rain-damp and concerned, his dark eyes searching her face. I needed time to think. About. She stepped back, letting him enter. About whether this is really my choice. Or whether I've just been swept along. He didn't argue. Didn't defend himself. Just stood in her small entryway, dripping onto her worn carpet and waited. My friend thinks I'm making a mistake, she continued. That you're dangerous and I'm deluding myself about what that means. Your friend is right. She blinked. What? I am dangerous. He moved to the window, keeping distance between them. People who care about me get hurt. It's the nature of my world. I can't promise you safety, Beatrice. I can't promise that my enemies won't use you to get to me again. Then why? Because I'm selfish. He turned to face her. Because for the first time in my life I want something that isn't about power or survival or family legacy. I want you. And I'm selfish enough to keep reaching for you even when I know I shouldn't. That's not reassuring. I know. He laughed. A broken sound. I'm not good at reassuring. I'm good at protecting, controlling, eliminating threats. But words? Comfort. He shook his head. Those weren't skills my father cultivated. You're not your father. I'm trying not to be. His eyes met hers. Every day I'm trying. He crossed the room. Stood before him at the rain-streaked window. I'm scared, she admitted. Of your world. Of what it could do to me. Of what loving you might cost. His breath caught. Loving me. She hadn't meant to say it. But the word was out now, hanging between them like a bridge half-built. I don't know, she whispered. Maybe. Yes. I think. She pressed her hand to her chest. I think I'm falling in love with you and it terrifies me. He moved slowly. Gave her time to retreat. But she didn't retreat. His hands cupped her face. Both hands this time holding her like something sacred. I will spend the rest of my life protecting you, he said. From my enemies. From my world. From anything that threatens your happiness. You can't promise that. I can promise to try. His forehead touched hers. I can promise that as long as I'm breathing, you will never face danger alone. She kissed him. Not gentle. Not tentative. A kiss that contained all the fear and longing and desperate hope of the past months. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, and she felt the steady beat of his heart against her own. This is real, she thought. Whatever else happens, this is real. Summer arrived in a blaze of heat and change. Beatrice moved into the villa. Not because Matteo asked, he made clear the choice was hers alone. But because her apartment felt empty now. Because she woke reaching for him and found only cold sheets. Because home had stopped being a place and become a person. The transition was complicated. Learning the rhythms of a household staffed by people who answered to a criminal empire. Understanding the unspoken rules. Navigating the careful balance between Matteo's public life and their private world. Some staff accepted her immediately. Others watched with barely concealed suspicion. She was an outsider. A potential weakness. A woman who had appeared from nowhere and captured their boss's attention. "They don't trust me," she said it one evening, curled against Matteo in the library, watching the fire cast shadows on the ancient books. "They don't know you." His hand stroked her hair. "Trust comes with time. What if they never accept me? Then they'll learn to pretend." His voice hardened slightly. "My household. My rules. By choice. I don't want people pretending." "I know." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Give them time. You'll win them over the same way you won me." With terrified whispers about assassins? He laughed. A real laugh, warm and unguarded. With honesty. With courage. With a refusal to be intimidated by things that should terrify you. The real test came 3 weeks later. A dinner with Matteo's inner circle. His most trusted advisors, the men and women who ran the legitimate and illegitimate arms of his empire. Beatrice dressed carefully. Dark blue silk. Her mother's pearls. Armor in its own way. They gathered in the formal dining room. 12 faces around the table. 12 pairs of eyes assessing the woman their boss had chosen. Marco, head of security, cold and watchful. Isabella, who managed the financial operations, sharp-featured and sharper-tongued. Pietro, who oversaw the legitimate businesses, jovial on the surface, calculating beneath. And others. All powerful. All skeptical. "So." Isabella leaned back in her chair. "The art curator. Tell us, Miss Valdieri, what qualifies you to sit at this table?" The room went silent. Matteo's hand tightened on his glass. Beatrice met Isabella's gaze steadily. "Nothing," she said. "I have no qualifications for your world. No skills that would be useful to your operations. No connections that could benefit your interests." Murmurs around the table. Isabella's eyebrow rose. "Then why are you here?" "Because he loves me." Beatrice didn't look at Matteo. "And because I love him. That's the only qualification I have. If it's not enough for you, I understand. But it's enough for him, and ultimately this is his table." Silence stretched. Then Pietro laughed. "Well." He raised his glass. "I like her." One by one the others followed suit. Not all of them. Isabella's expression remained carefully neutral, but enough. Beatrice exhaled. First battle won. Matteo found her afterward, standing alone on the terrace. "You were magnificent." "I was terrified." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "You handled Isabella better than most men I know. She doesn't like me. Isabella doesn't like anyone. But she respects strength." He kissed her neck. "You showed her strength." The months that followed were a delicate dance. Learning the boundaries of Matteo's world. Understanding what she could ask about and what remained off limits. Accepting that certain rooms in the villa contained secrets she would never know. It wasn't perfect. Some nights he came to bed with blood on his hands. Metaphorical, she hoped, though she learned not to ask. Some nights she woke to find him standing at the window, staring into darkness, wrestling with demons she could only imagine. But they faced it together. And slowly the villa stopped feeling like a fortress. Started feeling like home. Fall brought cooler weather and unexpected complications. His name was Dante Ferraro. Art dealer. Venetian aristocrat. Old money, older charm. He appeared at the gallery one September afternoon, interested in acquiring a piece for his private collection. And he was very, very interested in Beatrice. "Miss Valdieri." His smile was practiced perfection. "Your reputation precedes you. They say you have an eye for hidden beauty. They exaggerate." "Modesty." He moved closer, examining a painting she'd been cataloging. "How refreshing." His hand brushed hers, accidentally, he would claim if asked. She stepped back. Dante was persistent. He returned 3 times that week. Asked her opinion on acquisitions. Inquired about her professional background. Invited her to dinner. "I'm seeing someone," she said firmly. "Ah yes. The infamous Argenzi." Dante's smile didn't waver. "But surely a woman of your intelligence deserves options?" She told Matteo that evening. Watched his expression darken as she described Dante's visits. "You handled it," he said carefully. "I did. Good." His jaw tightened. "Because if I handled it, the Ferraro family would be short one heir." "Matteo. I'm not joking." His eyes met hers. "I would kill any man who touched you." The confession should have frightened her. Instead she felt something darker. Something that recognized the possessiveness in his gaze and answered it with her own. "He didn't touch me. He looked at you." Matteo moved closer. "I saw the gallery surveillance. He looked at you like he wanted." "Surveillance?" He stopped. "The gallery has cameras." "That you monitor?" Pause. "That my security team monitors. For your protection." She stepped back. "You're watching me. I'm protecting you. There's a difference." "Is there?" The argument that followed was their first real fight. She accused him of controlling her. Of treating her like property. He defended himself with cold logic. Enemies still existed, threats remained active, surveillance was standard for anyone connected to him. She slept in a guest room that night. Morning brought silence. She found him in the library, dark circles under his eyes, the look of a man who hadn't slept. "I removed the surveillance." She stopped in the doorway. "What?" "From the gallery. From your usual routes through the city." He didn't look at her. "You're right. It was control disguised as protection." "I'm sorry." She crossed the room slowly. Sat in the chair across from him. "You actually apologized." "I'm trying to be better." He finally met her eyes. "You make me want to be better." "The cameras are gone. I've assigned a visible security team instead. You'll know they're there. They'll only intervene if there's an actual threat." She considered this. "And Dante Ferraro?" His jaw tightened. "He's been discouraged from visiting the gallery." "You threatened him." "Marco may have had a conversation with him. About boundaries." "Matteo. I didn't hurt him." His voice was rough. "I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I didn't. Because I knew you wouldn't want me to." She moved to his chair. Knelt before him like he had once knelt before her in a warehouse. "Thank you," she said. "For hearing me. For changing. I don't know how to do this." His voice cracked. "This relationship, partnership, whatever we're building. My only models were my parents and they..." He stopped. "They what?" "My father controlled my mother completely. Every aspect of her life. Who she saw, what she wore, where she went." His hands clenched. "I swore I would never become that. But I see the patterns, Beatrice. I feel them pulling at me. Then we fight them together." She took his hands. "You tell me when you feel the control taking over. I tell you when you've crossed a line. We communicate." It sounds simple. It won't be. But it's better than the alternative. He pulled her into his lap. Held her close. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "More than I knew I was capable of loving anything." "I know." She pressed her lips to his temple. "I love you too." Winter came with frost on the olive groves and fire in the hearth. And with it came news that shattered their fragile peace. The Marchetti family had found a new ally. The Romano Syndicate. Marco delivered the report with his usual stoic efficiency. "They've merged operations. Shared resources. The Marchetti are no longer weak." Matteo stood at the window, his back to the room. Beatrice watched from the doorway, knowing she shouldn't be here, unable to leave. "What do they want?" "Revenge." Marco's voice was flat. "You humiliated them. Destroyed their best operatives. They want to return the favor." That night, security doubled. New guards appeared at every entrance. The cameras Matteo had removed were reinstalled, with Beatrice's reluctant agreement. The villa became what it had always secretly been. A fortress. "You should leave." Matteo said it at dinner, his food untouched, his eyes dark with worry. "Leave. Go somewhere safe. Another country. I have properties." "No. Beatrice." "I said no." She set down her fork. I'm not running. This isn't the warehouse. This isn't a few hired thugs. His voice rose. The Romano Syndicate has resources, connections, men who specialize in. He stopped. In what? In making examples of people. His jaw clenched. Of people like you. People I care about. Then we face it together. You could die. So could you. She reached across the table. I didn't walk away when your father's sins came to light. I didn't walk away when your world proved more dangerous than I imagined. I'm not walking away now. He stared at their joined hands. I don't know how to protect you from this. You can't protect me from everything, Matteo. But you can let me stand beside you. The attack came a week later. Not at the villa. Even the Romano Syndicate wasn't foolish enough to assault the Argenzi stronghold directly. It came at the gallery. Beatrice was alone when the men entered. Elena had left early. The security team was at the perimeter monitoring from outside. 3 men. Dark suits. Cold eyes. The leader smiled. Miss Valdieri. We've been wanting to meet you. She didn't scream. Didn't run. Instead she reached beneath the counter where Matteo had insisted she keep a panic button. Pressed it. The feeling isn't mutual, she said calmly. But I suspect you knew that. The security team burst in 45 seconds later. Not soon enough to prevent the leader from grabbing her. Not soon enough to stop the knife pressed against her throat. Tell Argenzi, the man hissed in her ear, that we want a meeting. Neutral ground. Tomorrow night. Then he shoved her away and vanished into the chaos. Matteo's reaction was volcanic. He raged through the villa, destroying a priceless vase, nearly breaking his hand on a wall. They touched you. I'm not hurt. They touched you. She stood in the center of the storm waiting for it to pass. Matteo. Her voice was quiet. Steady. I'm here. I'm safe. Focus. He stopped. Turned to face her. His eyes were wild, barely human, the civilized veneer stripped away to reveal the predator beneath. They want a meeting. Yes. I'll kill them all. Probably. She moved toward him. But first you need to think. This is a trap. I know it's a trap. Then act like it. The meeting was set for the following night. Neutral ground, an abandoned factory on the outskirts of Milan. Matteo took 50 men. Armed to the teeth. Prepared for war. But he also took something else. A plan. Beatrice wasn't supposed to be there. He'd forbidden it. But threatened. But she'd seen the look in his eyes, the cold certainty that he might not survive. She couldn't let him face that alone. So she hid in Marco's car. Arrived at the factory. Slipped through the chaos until she found a vantage point above the main floor. And watched. The factory floor was a sea of shadows. Matteo stood in the center, illuminated by a single flickering light. Behind him his men fanned out, weapons ready. Across from them, the Romano Marchetti alliance. 40 men at least. All armed. At their head stood a man Beatrice didn't recognize. Scarred. Eyes like chips of ice. Argenzi. The scarred man's voice echoed through the space. So good of you to come. Romano. Matteo's voice was flat. I'd say the same, but we both know why we're here. Do we? Romano smiled. I was hoping we could discuss terms. A peaceful resolution. You threaten the woman I love. There's no peaceful resolution. Beatrice's heart hammered. She watched from her hiding spot, barely breathing. Romano laughed. Love. How unexpected from the great Matteo Argenzi. I thought you were all business, all strategy. He shook his head. But then she appeared and suddenly you have a weakness. She's not a weakness. No. Romano raised his hand. A man emerged from the shadows dragging someone. Elena. Beatrice's vision went white. Her gallery director, her friend, bound and gagged, terror in her eyes. We found her at the gallery, Romano said casually. After our first visit. Insurance, you might say. Matteo didn't move. Let her go. She has nothing to do with this. But she does. Romano smiled. She's close to your woman. Which means she's leverage. The standoff stretched. Beatrice's mind raced. Elena was innocent. A bystander pulled into a world she'd warned Beatrice about. This is my fault. I have to fix this. She moved before she could think better of it. climbed down from her vantage point, walked onto the factory floor. Every head turned. Matteo's expression went from shock to fury to terror in the space of a heartbeat. Beatrice. Let her go. She addressed Romano directly. She's not part of this. I am. Romano's eyes widened. Then he laughed. The woman herself. Walking into the lion's den. He gestured and his men seized her. You've saved me considerable trouble. Beatrice, what are you? Matteo took a step forward. His men raised their weapons. The trade is simple. She kept her voice steady. Me for her. Let Elena go. You keep me as leverage. No. Matteo's voice was ice. Absolutely not. It's not your choice. She met his eyes. It's mine. I won't let you. You can't stop me. Her gaze held his. But you can make sure this ends. Tonight. Romano considered. A willing hostage. He circled her slowly. Interesting. What makes you think I won't just keep both of you? Because you're smart. Beatrice didn't flinch. Keeping Elena serves no purpose, she's nobody to the Argenzi. But me. I'm the weakness you've been looking for. Beatrice. Matteo's voice broke. Trust me, she said softly. Please. Romano released Elena. The gallery director stumbled toward the exit, where Matteo's men caught her and guided her to safety. Beatrice remained. Surrounded by enemies. Watching Matteo's face contort with anguish. Now. Romano pressed a gun to Beatrice's temple. We negotiate. What do you want? Northern Territory. The shipping routes. 50% of your legitimate operations. Matteo laughed. A hollow, desperate sound. You want me to hand over half my empire. I want you to consider what you're willing to lose. Romano pressed the gun harder. Her life. Or your power. The silence stretched. Beatrice watched Matteo's face. The calculation, the rage, the desperate love warring behind his eyes. Matteo. Her voice was quiet. Don't. What? Don't give him what he wants. Not for me. You're asking me to let you die. I'm asking you to survive. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Whatever happens to me, survive. We will win. Romano rolled his eyes. Touching. But unnecessary. He gestured to his men. Take her. We'll conclude this negotiation elsewhere. They dragged her toward the exit. Matteo didn't move. His eyes tracked her every step, burning with something she couldn't name. Then, a signal. A whistle high and sharp. And the world exploded into chaos. Matteo's men had been waiting. Hidden. Positioned. Ready for exactly this moment. The factory erupted in gunfire, in shouting, in the controlled violence of a perfectly executed ambush. Beatrice dropped to the floor as her captors scattered. Crawled through the chaos. Felt hands grab her, familiar hands calloused and strong. I've got you. Matteo's voice in her ear. I've got you. He carried her out of the factory. Deposited her in an armored car. Kissed her once, hard, desperate, before turning back to the battle. Stay here. Matteo. Stay. Here. And then he was gone. The battle lasted an hour. Beatrice waited in the car, surrounded by guards, listening to the distant sounds of violence. Praying. Hoping. Dying slowly with each passing minute. When Matteo returned, he was covered in blood. Not all of it his. He climbed into the car, pulled her into his arms, and held on like she was the only solid thing in a drowning world. It's over. Romano. Dead. The alliance destroyed. His voice was hoarse. It's over. She pulled back to look at him. Catalogued the injuries. A cut above his eye, bruises blooming on his jaw, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. You planned this. I suspected they would bring leverage. I positioned men to strike when the moment was right. His hand cupped her cheek. What I didn't plan for was you walking onto that floor. I couldn't let Elena. You could have gotten yourself killed. His voice cracked. I watched him hold a gun to your head and He stopped. I can't lose you, Beatrice. I can't. She kissed him. Poured everything she felt into it. The fear, the relief, the overwhelming love. You won't, she whispered. I'm here. I'm staying. The weeks after the battle were quiet. The Romano syndicate fragmented. The Marchetti retreated to their southern strongholds. licking wounds that would take years to heal. Matteo's power solidified, and Beatrice found herself permanently woven into the fabric of his world. It started with small things. A seat at council meetings. Introductions to allies and associates. Access to parts of his operations she'd never dreamed of seeing. "You're making me part of this," she said one evening. "You already are." He pulled her close. "I'm just making it official." The proposal came on a quiet Tuesday. No grand gestures. No elaborate setting. Just Matteo kneeling in the library where they'd shared so many conversations, a ring in his hand. "I know I'm not what you planned for," he said. "I know my world is dangerous and dark and nothing like the life you imagined. But I'm asking anyway." He opened the box. A simple diamond. Elegant. Timeless. "Marry me, Beatrice. Let me spend the rest of my life earning you." He didn't hesitate. "Yes." His face transformed, relief and joy and a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "Yes. Yes, Matteo." She pulled him to his feet. 1,000 times yes. The wedding was 3 months later. Small. Private. Held in the villa's garden, surrounded by olive trees and the scent of jasmine. Beatrice wore her mother's pearls with a new gown. Ivory silk, simple and perfect. Matteo wore black as always, the tattoo at his neck visible above his collar. They exchanged vows as the sun set. And when he kissed her, the applause of their gathered witnesses faded to nothing. There was only him. Only this moment. Only forever. The first year of marriage was an adjustment. Learning to share space with someone who commanded empires. Understanding the rhythms of his schedule, the demands on his time, the constant negotiations between love and duty. But they found their balance. Morning coffee together no matter what chaos awaited. Evenings in the library, reading or talking or simply existing in the same space. Nights wrapped in each other, finding peace in the darkness. The news came on a spring morning. Beatrice had suspected for weeks but hadn't wanted to hope. The doctor confirmed it with a smile. She was pregnant. Telling Matteo was the easiest and hardest thing she'd ever done. She found him in his office, reviewing something that made his jaw tight. "I need to tell you something." He looked up immediately. "The paper's forgotten." "What is it?" He crossed to him. Took his hand. Placed it on her still flat stomach. "You're going to be a father." The transformation was instantaneous. All the hardness, all the cold calculation, all the carefully maintained walls. Gone. In their place, something raw and unguarded. Wonder. Terror. Overwhelming love. He couldn't finish. Yes. He pulled her into his arms. Held her so tight she could barely breathe. "I'll protect you both," he whispered. "Whatever it takes. Whatever it costs. I'll keep you safe." "I know." She pressed her lips to his temple. "I know you will." The nursery was quiet. Beatrice stood in the doorway watching Matteo hold their daughter. Isabella Argenzi. Named for both their mothers. She had Matteo's dark hair and Beatrice's hazel eyes. And she had both of them wrapped entirely around her tiny finger. "She's going to be dangerous," Matteo murmured, not looking up. "I can already tell. She's 2 weeks old." "Exactly. And already she controls everything. Clearly inherits my strategic mind." Beatrice laughed. "Or my stubbornness." "That too." He crossed the room. Leaned against her husband's shoulder. Looked down at the miracle they'd created together. "I never imagined this," she said softly. "When I walked across that ballroom. When I whispered that warning. Neither did I." His free arm wrapped around her. "I thought I'd die that night. Never knowing what it felt like to." He stopped. "To love like this. And now." He turned his head. Kissed her temple. "Now I have everything." The villa was quiet around them. The olive groves swayed in the evening breeze. Somewhere in the distance, guards patrolled the perimeter, maintaining the safety that had been bought with blood and sacrifice. But here in this room there was only peace. Only family. Only the future stretching out before them, full of promise and possibility. Beatrice thought about her mother. About the tragedy that had, in a twisted way, led to this moment. "I hope you can see this," she thought. "I hope you know that something beautiful grew from the darkness." Matteo shifted their daughter in his arms. "Beatrice." Thank you." "For what?" His eyes met hers, dark, intense, full of emotion he still struggled to express. For walking toward me that night. For saving my life. For giving me reasons to live it. She smiled. The same smile she'd worn across 1,000 intimate moments. The smile that was his alone. You saved me too, she said. We saved each other. The chandelier scattered diamonds of light across the ballroom floor. 300 guests in silk and secrets swirled beneath its glow. But Beatrice Valdieri had only ever seen him. And Matteo Argenzi, the most dangerous man in Italy, had only ever seen her. Dance is my husband, she'd whispered. There's a red dot on your forehead. And now, a lifetime later, they danced still. Not to escape danger. But to celebrate survival. To honor love. To embrace the beautiful, impossible future they'd built together. Forever. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more dark romance content. Your support means everything.